You don't get fired in the middle of an NBA season for being boring. You get fired for doing something bold, watching it implode, and making everyone involved regret the whole adventure. That's the short version of what just happened to Nico Harrison in Dallas. 9 months ago, Harrison made the kind of move that makes a general manager's palms sweat and owner meetings long. He traded away Luka Dončić. The proposal was audacious: rebuild the timescale, reconfigure the roster, pivot around a new core, and it briefly smelled like genius. The Mavericks reached the NBA Finals, optimism was sky high, and Harrison's stock was at might be the architect of an era. Fast forward to today. Dallas is 3-8, near the bottom of the Western Conference, and Harrison's tenure is over. Let's unpack how a single decision, albeit one wrapped in dozens of secondary choices, spiraled into a mess that crushed trust and exposed the fragility of roster construction. Start with the scoreboard. A 3-8 start isn't catastrophic on paper mid-November, but context matters. The Mavericks are missing their top playmakers for stretches. Kyrie Irving is out recovering from a torn left ACL. Anthony Davis, the linchpin of Harrison's post-Luka plan, has missed time. Dereck Lively-Sue and Daniel Gafford dealt with injuries. That string of bad luck can sink any team. But bad luck only becomes an existential threat when your roster is top-heavy, inflexible, and built around pieces that can't carry the load when the chips fall. Harrison's problem wasn't just injuries. It was design. The Dončić trade brought in size, defense, and hope, Anthony Davis and a collection of role pieces, but it also dumped a huge share of the payroll into a few stars. That left Dallas light on playmaking, perimeter shooting, and reliable secondary creators. You can win with defense if your offense can hold up. Harrison's roster, without Luka's shot creation gravity and with Kyrie out, has struggled to generate consistent offense. The result has been an offense that ranks near the bottom in efficiency and a defensive unit that, while decent on paper, is asked to do too much without an engine to sustain it. Personnel decisions that looked clever on paper have not aged well. The Klay Thompson signing, a 3-year, $50 million deal, was a headline move meant to inject veteran shooting and championship DNA. Instead, Thompson has looked washed. Poor percentages and bench time followed. And D'Angelo Russell, the stopgap ball handler Harrison added, hasn't fixed the playmaking vacuum. Russell's early numbers are underwhelming. His on-off minutes didn't stabilize the team the way the front office hoped. Then there's the Quentin Grimes story, the one that looks worst in hindsight. Harrison flipped Grimes to Philadelphia for Caleb Martin, a move meant to rebalance the roster toward defense and toughness. Grimes, meanwhile, is flourishing in a Sixers system, scoring efficiently and spacing the floor. Martin, hampered by injuries and limited minutes, hasn't produced anything close to a fair return on that exchange. That's the kind of miscalculation that gnaws at governors and owners. Trading a young, ascending shooter for an older veteran with injury questions is a good trade only if the veteran actually plays. He hasn't. The trade for Max Christie looked cleaner stylistically. Add a young two-way wing with upside, and Christie has contributed. But he's not a creator in the way Dallas desperately needs. The Mavericks hemorrhaged playmaking when they surrendered players who could naturally take on ball handling responsibilities, and the depth to replace those roles wasn't cultivated. When Luka left, the team lost a unique gravity that masked many flaws. Harrison didn't build an adequate contingency. The governance problem is also telling. According to reporting, Mavericks Governor Patrick Dumont lost confidence in Harrison after a series of disagreements, capped by a dispute over whether to clear Anthony Davis to return. That's not a technical glitch. That's a signal. When an owner begins to second-guess roster and medical decisions, trust is fractured. Ownership involvement in return-to-play discussions can be normal, but when it's driven by a lack of faith in the GM, it's lethal for a front office's autonomy. Harrison pushed a thesis. Defense plus complementary stars could plug the gap left by Luka, and the team could pivot its timeline toward sustainable contention. In theory, it's defensible. In practice, it requires depth in shooters and playmakers who can take pressure off the stars. The Mavericks got the size and the defense, but not the durable offensive scaffolding. When the problem wasn't a single bad night, but a systemic inability to score without Luka or Kyrie, the strategy collapsed. There are other, smaller errors that accumulate. The Reeves question is a glaring one in the narrative. Austin Reeves, who flourished when Dončić was off the floor after the trade, apparently was not on the Mavericks' wish list in those talks. Reeves is the kind of two-way guard who can create space and shoulder heavy minutes without demanding the ball every second. If Pelinka and the Lakers kept him out of the deal, that's a missed counterfactual. But front offices get judged on outcomes, not hypotheticals. Harrison's outcomes weren't good enough. Now a quick reality check. Front offices don't always have perfect options. Injuries happen. Market dynamics constrain trades. The appeal of Anthony Davis is obvious. He's an all-star, a room changer. Betting your future on a few stars can work until it doesn't. The core problem for Harrison was not making contingency plans that could hold up when the stars missed time. Depth and redundancy are boring to talk about, but essential. The Mavericks lacked that. The political fallout is swift and absolute. Owners and governors want control of the direction of a franchise. They'll hire a GM for vision and execution. They'll fire a GM when that execution breaks trust. Harrison's tenure went from can't miss to can't trust in a hurry. For a governor who once trusted him implicitly and publicly to step in and question medical clearances, trust had to be broken behind closed doors long before the public firing. That's a striking career arc, from the cusp of dynasty optimism to ouster in less than a year. For the Mavericks fans, the aftermath is messy. You watch the same core pieces you hoped would anchor a new era struggle to cohere. You wonder whether loyalty to a narrative, defense first, win now, led to short-term expediency at the expense of depth. You watch a former franchise icon thrive elsewhere, and it stings. There's a human element too. Players caught in roster churn, coaches trying to build culture while the front office changes, and young guys asked to fix structural problems beyond their years. What's the lesson? Building around one superstar is always a risk. Trading away one is radioactive, unless you have a long-term plan that survives shocks. The NBA is unforgiving to design errors that leave the roster unbalanced. Trades must not only look good on paper, but be resilient across injuries and slumps. Depth, playmaking, and redundancy win 82-game seasons and provide cover when the unpredictable happens. Nico Harrison's downfall is a cautionary tale about timing, trust, and the fragile alchemy of roster construction. Bold moves can create championships, or they can burn careers. For Dallas, the experiment failed. For Harrison, the fast arc from finals architect to fired GM is a reminder that in the NBA, as in life, the margin for error is vanishingly small. You ever watch what happens when one decision ripples into a dozen failures, then the next season hits and the echoes get loud? That's what's playing out in Dallas with the Nico Harrison saga. The trade that traded away Luka Dončić and the rapid collapse that followed is less about a single mistake and more about a string of them. It starts with the trade.